Dear friends, welcome to this session. All of you by now have gone through the basics of research in terms of conceptualizing the ideas, study designs, ethical and scientific contact of research. And I am sure now you are ready to give life to your research ideas in the form of a concept paper. I am going to introduce to you how to prepare a concept paper for research projects. At the end of this session, you will be in a position to write a concept paper for a research project. Now, let us revisit the 7 steps of a successful protocol. These are logical, sequential and essential steps. The steps include identifying research topic, framing research question and objectives, and then moving on to outlining a 1-page concept paper, preparing dummy tables as per the analysis plan, writing a detailed draft protocol, preparing instruments and annexes including information sheet, consent form and other things related to the study protocol, submit this to a competent peer review committee, and finally seek review by an ethics committee. Let us look at the life cycle of research and how these steps are important in relation to the life cycle of research. You will see that we start with identifying data needs and we end with requiring more information that necessitates further research. So, therefore, the concept paper has to capture all of these elements in a miniature form of a protocol. We are today in the second step. How do we outline a 1-page concept paper? You may wonder why 1 page, and there is a reason for it. The time for everybody is very precious. For you, for your faculty, for your guides, for your reviewers, time is precious. Equally, the funding agencies are also hard pressed for time. So, a 1 page in a shorter version forces you to be focused. Many of our ideas just are not born, they remain as ideas. 1 page, to write a 1 page as compared to a long detailed protocol may help us in overcoming the inhibition that we have in writing a detailed protocol. Therefore, the ideas may be born rather than getting aborted. That is the reason for 1 page. I am going to now outline this 1 page, what it requires in bullet styles in each of the sections of the concept paper. It has these sections, which is essentially, as I said earlier, a miniature of the protocol. It has section on background and justification, statement of objectives as a separate section, method section, expected benefits, key references and budget. I am going to elaborate on each of these sections. Let us begin with looking at background and justification. The background and justification essentially will have 3 bullets. 1 on the importance of the study problem. Second, what is known and unknown about the problem in relation to the literature and in relation to the local context. Lastly, the information that is needed to address the problem effectively. Now, let us look at the statement of objectives. In the concept paper, we want you to state not more than 2 or 3 objectives. If needed, you may have to split them as general and specific. As we have discussed in the earlier session on research questions and objectives, you need to indicate which is your primary objective and which are your secondary objectives. This is very critical because the objectives give clarity to the reviewers about your research process. The next section is on methods. It has to give by bullets an outline of all the aspects of methods covering, for example, study design, study population, key operational definitions, the sampling methodology by which you will select your study participants, the calculation of sample size and key considerations for sample size, the data collection procedures, who will collect, what will they collect, and an analysis plan around the key objectives. Finally, this section will end up by saying what are the ethical issues and which ethics committee will review this protocol if developed. The next section is on expected benefits. As you have listened from the earlier session, the research question is to be answered. There are two aspects of benefits that we look forward in answering the research question. One, what action will be taken following the results? Second, what is the future research or planning or policy agenda as a result of these findings? This is very important from the concept paper point of view. You have to set out this in this section. And finally, you need to show that you have mastered the literature. These key references may be referred to in the introduction section, and it may be needed to refer to some operational definitions in the method section, a citation of a reference. We suggest that you need not put in more than 5 references. However, we recommend strongly you follow internationally acceptable standard guidelines for writing these references. We recommend you to adopt and use International Committee of Medical Journal Editors guidelines, which is accepted globally by many biomedical journals. The last section is on budget. You may wonder why budget is important in this concept paper, but it is equally important to technical and other aspects of preparing a concept paper. This is an indicative budget. It need not have detailed justification. It can cover key items like salaries, per diem, travel, equipments and supplies and miscellaneous, whatever is applicable to the conduct of the research that you are proposing. Many research agencies insist on having an indicative budget, so this is also equally important. Let us look at some of the aspects of application of this concept. If you look at Indian Council of Medical Research, the premier medical research agency in the country, ICMR on its homepage offers funding for researchers like you and me. There is a provision called extramural funding on its homepage, and you will see on the homepage there is a provision to submit what they call as pre-proposal format. This is similar to concept paper. This pre-proposal format covers the following: a title, an introduction, a novelty, applicability and description of the project. You will see that they have specified word count for each of these sections. Now, if you see the outline that we provided, most of this can be taken from the concept paper that we just now, generic concept paper that we just now provided you, except maybe novelty, you may have to write it as an afresh section. The ICMR is also promoting research culture among medical undergraduates. They are offering what is called short-term studentship for medical undergraduates in India. They call it STS proposals. The format for STS proposal, the preliminary one, goes like this. It has a title, introduction, objective, methodology, implications and references. This looks exactly similar to the generic format that we just now recommended. The implications is something similar to the expected benefit that we just now discussed. So, what we are recommending is that many other Indian and international agencies accept this pre-proposal or concept note or concept paper as a first step before awarding funding to the researchers. This first step helps them in screening the proposal for its worthiness, merit to award the funds. In fact, some of the research funding agencies even fund and support developing a concept paper if it is meritorious to a full-fledged protocol through their own funding. So, a ready, handy concept paper is very useful to submit to such research funding opportunities. Therefore, what can you achieve with a one-page concept paper? It helps you to organize your ideas, find just right words in a brief but succinct manner, and that helps you to stand out in the competition. You may receive rapid and positive response. For your benefit, in the reading section, you will find a template concept paper, one pager, a Word document which you may use for writing your concept paper. Second, we have also provided a sample concept paper. Now, we are going to look at two templates of concept papers, one for writing observational studies, another for interventional studies. I am going to show them and go through the parts of these two templates. The first one is on observational studies. As you can see, you can type your title of the project, you can type your name. The first section is about background and justification, and we have provided tips. You can actually overwrite on these three bullets. The first bullet is about the context of the study problem in a quantified manner with linked references. The second bullet is about the local context in which what we know and what we do not know is stated. The third bullet is in terms of what information we need to manage the problem effectively. You can just overwrite on these three bullets. The next section is about statement of objectives. We have some tips here. You need to state them quantitatively for the primary objective, and you may make it clear whether you want to propose to estimate a quantity or test hypothesis depending on the nature of the research question and statement of the objectives which we discussed earlier. And last but very important, you need to clearly distinguish the secondary objectives from the primary objectives. The next section is an elaborate section on methods. As we discussed, it should be in bullets, and you can derive some tips for the type of study design from this widely accepted guidelines available in this website, equator-network.org. You can state the study population, you can state the study design in one bullet. It could be in terms of observational study design, it could be a survey, it could be case controlled cohort studies or ecological studies, or sometimes it could be even case report or case series depending on the study design that you choose based on the objectives. Then the operational definitions, you need to provide key definitions only, and here is where, as I discussed earlier, you can make a reference to the standard definition from the literature. Criteria, you can even state controlled recruitment strategy for a case control study. Sampling procedure you can state in one bullet. Sample size, you can briefly mention the sample size and the assumptions. Data collection, as I said, you need to spell out who will collect the data, what kind of data they will collect and within what time frame, and briefly the quality assurance that is going to be used. Finally, the analysis plan. You need to summarize the type of analysis based on the primary and secondary objectives. You may mention laboratory analysis if they are part of your study. Human subject protection, you may have to mention about key measures that are taken to ensure the protection of the human participants and which ethics committee will review this proposal. And last but important section is on expected benefits. You need to describe the report that will be generated and the outcome of the study in order to manage the study problem effectively in the area where the study is conducted. The references, the 5 references, you can even make it small font size, but adhere to the standard guidelines which we recommend that you use ICMG guidelines. And finally, the budget section in a brief 4 bullets. Okay, so this is on observational studies. So we'll have a now look at concept paper for intervention studies. For intervention studies, the background has to state what is known and unknown for the drug or interventions or management of the specific study problem that you are talking about. And you need to say why the information currently available is insufficient. You need to state the objectives clearly here in terms of primary objective, which will look at the primary outcome. In terms of methods, you may benefit from using the guidelines that are available for writing a clinical trial protocol. So you may use the elements from that guideline, which is called SPIRIT. The method section is pretty much similar, except that you need to state in the clinical trial concept paper, specifically interventions, the drug or intervention, its dosage, frequency, nature, and all the other forms of interventions. Operational definitions, you may have to state the primary and secondary outcomes. You may have to state the participant recruitment strategy. The next important section is on randomization, sequence allocation, and allocation concealment. You have to briefly mention the type of randomization, methods used to generate and implement the allocation, and masking has to be mentioned as to the level and the type of masking. The other sections are pretty much similar to what we saw in the concept paper template for observational studies. We have a sample out there in the reading section. Please make use of it while writing your concept papers. We hope you will benefit by making use of it and make writing concept paper a habit, and we wish you give birth to your ideas. Wish you all the best. Thank you.